when Ethan NWANERI made his debut for us now at the young age of 15 and 181 days back in the 22-23 season against Brentford, most Arsenal fans did not necessarily know how to react to watching a 15-year-old play for Arsenal. I think I'm just going to speak for myself. Because I never really paid a lot of attention to the younger players or to the academy players, I didn't really know anything about NWANERI. I didn't know how good he was. The only thing I knew for sure was that if Arteta had considered him good enough to make the team sheet, let alone make his debut at that young age, he had to have a lot of talent. And that was all. But again, if you've watched Arsenal for the past 15, 10, 20 years, you must have come across all of these younger players that we've been told you're going to take the next step and become world-class players. We've had names like Shiba Harpong, Mirinda, Carlos Vela, Don Quali. I think Gideon Zalaman had to be the last player I fully bought hype into. And this was like back then. I can't even remember the year. But I think in one of the preseason, they came to Africa also. And I fully paid attention into watching Gideon Zalaman, thinking he was going to become the new Diaby, or he was going to become one of those players, because you could really see how talented he was back then. But for some reason, he never really got to make it. And that tends to apply to a lot of younger players. So when young players break through at Arsenal, I tend to always have some form of reservation, or I tend to have less expectation and just allow them play through their career. Because I've always had that feeling that if you are good enough, with time, we're going to see it. We don't necessarily need to hype you or put all of this pressure on your head. And for the most part, that was how I approached Ethan NWANERI. Low expectation and just to see how the things are going to be. But because a lot of people, even Arteta himself, spoke on how great he was, a lot of fans bought into the hype. But I think the most memorable thing to come out of that entire Ethan NWANERI debut was the fact that Arteta still got 8 for playing NWANERI back then.
And then I had that feeling from yesterday, if the opportunity could come, I was going to do it, and I just did it. What is your take on that?
Look, congratulate him, because what an achievement. You know, don't take anything away from what he's done there, because what an achievement. I love the way the Arsenal fans were singing He's Got School in the Morning, the way they were chanting, because, you know, he's made everyone, his parents, everyone at the academy, his school, everyone that's had an input on his career. Congratulations, because that is an unbelievable achievement. I'm delighted for him on a personal level.
Is there a big buck coming?
There is a big buck coming.
Okay,
Arteta doesn't really care about the boy.
Oh,
I'm sorry. I think that's a really poor decision. I do, because it's about Arteta. It's all about Arteta. I have the manager that played the youngest ever player in the Premier League is me.
If you ever want to know how ridiculous the hate we get as fans and the hate Arteta gets, that particular NWANERI debut and the fallout of it was one of the very reasons why you kind of need to see how crazy people are when they talk about Arsenal. But back to my gist. So for the first year, all we saw was a 1-2 minutes of NWANERI, and that was it. Even in the next season, the 23-24 season, he didn't really play a lot. I think he made just one appearance against West Ham. But then again, you need to remember that back in the 23-24 season, we didn't have any injury. Every game from when we came back from Dubai was important. All of the points we drew against Villa, every game, even till the end of the season, we kept going. So he never really had the opportunity to see minutes within the first team. But all of that changed in the 24-25 season, where we had all of those injuries to players like Saka, Odegaard, and needed players from within the team to step up, which was what NWANERI did. And in that season alone, I think he made about 37 appearances, scoring 9 goals, breaking a 62-year-old record by becoming the youngest player to score 8 or 9 goals before the age of 18. Even in the Champions League, he made his debut against Girona. He scored a goal. He won the man of the match in that game, only for him to go to the next Champions League game against PSV and score another goal, becoming the youngest player to score in back-to-back Champions League games. I think he was also like the third youngest player to ever score in the Champions League. He basically just broke all of the records you can really break for a young player in that season. It was very good. But even in all of these, I still had my doubts because, yes, the output was there for everybody to see. But then again, when you go back to really scrutinize those numbers, you can start to see where the goals were coming from. 2 against Bolton, 1 against Preston, 1 against Ipswich, against Nottingham Forest he scored 1, against Brighton. I think his biggest highlight came when he scored against City. Even him confessed that was his highlight of the season, scoring against City. But the hype then was crazy. I was one of the few fans I was trying to tell people, calm down. Yes, it's giving us a hard put, but take away those goals. How much does it really influence the game? And the one thing that bothered me the most with NWANERI back in that season was the more he played, the lesser his impact was. There's an argument to be made that the game against Leicester, where we debuted Merino as a striker, was probably his best performance in an Arsenal shirt to date. And every other game just kept getting harder as defenses decided to figure him out and try to prevent him cutting to his left and taking a shot. Because if there's one thing we know Ethan NWANERI is great at, is in striking the ball and carrying the ball. And if you can limit those two things, take away the space, take away his left foot option, he kind of tends to always struggle in those games. So when we had games towards the end of the season, games against PSG where we needed goals and players were calling and fans were calling for Arteta to play NWANERI, I kind of understood the reason Arteta did not want to play NWANERI, because he barely had any impact. And that was when the Arteta do not like kids kind of started coming back again. If you remember, back with Saliba and him going on loan, a lot of fans were complaining that Arteta do not like to play kids. And I thought that died up until 2 years ago, where we had this issue with NWANERI and people started complaining that this is why we don't like Arteta. Arteta do not like to play kids and all of these things, not knowing fully whether NWANERI was not necessarily influencing the game. Again, I'm not going to tell people how to necessarily react to a player or how to judge a player. I'm only just saying, look at those games. You can see why Arteta did not necessarily play him as much to end the season. But because of the talent he had, we kind of had to tie him into a new contract. I'm really, really curious to know how Arteta convinced him to sign a new deal for Arsenal, because back then, Dortmund came for him, Chelsea were in for him. I mean, obviously, I would not advise you to go to Chelsea, but maybe he could have gone to Dortmund and steadily just find a way to play more games and to develop himself, because that's what Dortmund do. They develop younger players, but we can't really talk about that because it never really happened. So we tied him into a new contract coming into the next season. And even in that summer, we started to hear things like Arteta do not really see him as a right winger. We saw him more as an attacking midfielder. Again, besides to hear the likes of Matt Damon coming in, we already paid money on Madueke. So the space and the right wing was basically gone. And he only had to compete with Eze and Odegaard for the attacking midfielder position. If you know how difficult that is, because even aside from Eze, Odegaard, you see had Merino competing with him. So it was not really a surprise to most people when he struggled for game time for the first half of last season. So when the winter transfer window opened up in January, I started to hear rumors of him going on loan. I was happy that I was going on loan, because yes, we had fears of players getting injury and all of these. I still wanted him to go out to play more games because I felt that was good for his development. I just didn't necessarily think Marseille should have been the destination. Yes, on paper it makes sense. He would have the opportunity to play under Dizebi, one of the more attacking minded coaches. They play a similar way to how we've played in the past. They play a similar way to how we even play at the moment. They're very possession dependent and they press a lot. That is how we play. I know last season and the season before has kind of distort people's opinion and perception of Arteta and how we play in general with all the nonsense around ball. And yes, we sometimes sit deep. We make things difficult. We don't always play the best football, but we have times where we also dominate teams. We dominated Bayern. We dominated Tottenham, Leverkusen. We dominated City in the first leg, the 1-1 game where Martinelli got the equalizer. We dominated a lot of games, but a lot of fans just tend to point to the games where we defended more. Again, it's all fine. It's all part of the copium. You can do whatever you want to do. But my point being, on paper, it made sense to want to go to Marseille to play under Dizebi. If you also remember, we kind of have like an understanding with Marseille because Saliba had to go to Marseille in the 21-22 season for a whole year. That was where he had the game time to fully develop himself. So by the time he came to Arsenal in the 22-23 season, he walked into the team and immediately became a top 4, top 3 central defender in the entire league. That was the dream for NWANERI. Go to Marseille, get a lot of game time, develop yourself, come back to Arsenal. But that did not necessarily happen. I mean, in his first game against Lens, he scored his goal and everybody got crazy. It's an NWANERI this, it's an NWANERI that. Arteta, see, you need to play this guy more when he comes back. And that was the peak, that was the highlight of his time in France, because after that game, everything kept coming down. I think in his third game against Toulouse, in the League One version of the FA Cup, he missed a penalty and Marseille got knocked out of the competition, and he was heavily criticized by the French media. And 4 games under Dizebi left him, because I think Dizebi left after like 20 days or so. He didn't really get the time to play under Dizebi. And by the time the new manager came, what's his name again? Calvin Baye or something. He used to play for Marseille. I think he even played in the league for Aston Villa, if I'm not misremembering. I'm going to check and post a picture if I'm right. But basically, the first thing the new manager said was to complain about his commitment. That is not what you want to be hearing about a 18-year-old in a new club trying to find game time. Commitment should be the last thing your manager is worried about. And a lot of Arsenal fans did not necessarily buy into that. I've never had any problem with NWANERI's behavior or how he carries himself. I like the fact that he's a very, very serious player. I just didn't know where that came from. And I also feel like if this person is saying something about your commitment, they must have seen something, regardless of whether we choose to believe that or not. It was a bit worrying to hear the manager speak on NWANERI that way. And for the rest of his time in France, he did not perform as well as he maybe could have, because he did not get the time to play on the pitch. Which brings me back to the entire reason for making this video. When the preseason started, one of the players I was looking hard to make the most of their chance was NWANERI. We had a lot of players that played in the World Cup that it was going to take time for them to come back into the team. So I felt players like NWANERI, Lewis Kelly, McDormand, Mosquera, this was going to be their time to fully to build on their credit, to make a name for themselves. And I'm going to be lying if I'm going to say I've not been disappointed in NWANERI's performance so far. I know it's unfair to say it's just been 2 games. We have a couple more games. He's going to get more game time. He's hopefully going to find his feet. And I do feel some of the formation he's played in has not necessarily helped him, particularly against the Real Betis. I never liked the midfield of Lewis Kelly, Kai Havertz, and NWANERI. You have 2 low-touch players, 2 players that are almost moment players in a way, players that would would struggle in tight places, players that would struggle to come and take the ball. We only had Lewis Kelly progressing the ball. Nwaneri would always struggle to function in that midfield if you're asking him to do the things that Odegaard does. Again, if I ask any one of us here, what are Nwaneri's best skill? You're easily going to point to the fact that he carries the ball very well and his ball striking is probably the best in the squad now that Trossard has left. None of these scream a left 8 in the Arsenal system. For you to play a left 8 or for you to play the number 8 position in our team, you have to be good in tight spaces. Nwaneri at this moment in time is not good in tight spaces. You have to be good receiving the ball with your back behind the ball. He struggles in doing all of those. He needs space to drive in. He needs to be closer to the box to be able to utilize the skill set he has. It's the same issue we have with players like Eze. It's also the same reason I never rate Morgan Rogers highly. I like players that are comfortable in those tight spaces. That is how you're going to be able to link up play. That is how you're going to be able to bypass press. That is how you're going to keep possession. That is what we need more of. And I feel like this system has not really favored Nwaneri. And to be honest, I don't know what it is we can do at this point in time, because all of these same players we had last season in the midfield that plays in the same position are still going to be in the team to start this season. So basically, he's also not going to get much of a game time than what he got last season. So it kind of makes sense that we start to hear things like the club are considering selling him. We've heard AC Milan or Leipzig make a deal of about 35-40 million euros. I mean, we are so bad at selling players. If at the end of this summer window, Chamberlain is still our record sale, I will be so vexed regardless of whatever we're getting. I mean, we need to, if we are going to sell Nwaneri, it has to be more than that. I cannot believe we're even considering a fee of 35 million euros. The only thing that will make that make sense is if we have a buyback clause that favors us. That is the only way that entire deal is going to make sense. But at this point in time, it is hard and it's sad to say out loudly. I don't know how Nwaneri is going to make it in this Arsenal team at this point in time. If I'm the one making the decision, I'm going to loan him out. But at the end of the day, I think my overarching argument or my overarching point would be that at some point in time, we placed too much expectation on these players, and we are this way, and we are very quick to turn on players the moment they struggle. See, now everybody is talking about Max Dalman like is this next best thing, which I hope he is. I mean, everyone in the academy have come out to say he's arguably the best talent to ever come out of Ireland. I hope nothing bad happen to him. I hope he doesn't pick up an injury. I hope he goes on to become one of the best players in the world. But at this moment in time, I cannot place the expectation on him. We did this with Nwaneri, and as soon as a new player came along, we ditched Nwaneri and tried to focus on Max Dalman. And I do not want the same thing to happen to Max Dalman. And to end all of this rant, I would just like to reference Sir Gnabry. When we loaned him out to West Brom under Tony Pulis, he struggled. He really struggled. That by the time he came back to Arsenal, we kind of knew his career and time with Arsenal was over. But looking at him now, looking back at how he managed to revive his career to the point that he plays for the best team in Germany, for one of the best teams in world football, I feel something similar is going to happen to Nwaneri. I feel in a perfect environment, there's hardly ever going to be a perfect environment, but in a perfect setting that utilizes his abilities, in a Crystal Palace team, in an Aston Villa team, in a Nottingham Forest team that play more on a counter, that play with more space, that needs their midfielders to carry the ball, he's going to shine. He's going to show us that he is still that 15-year-old talent that we were all told was going to become one of the next big thing. Yes, he might not get to the level of a Saka or so, but I feel like there is a player there, and I do hope that we find a way to ensure that we keep him. And maybe I'm wrong, but I watched that Betis game and I was sad and I was angry with his performance. Again, it's a preseason. There's only so much he can make out of it. But I just feel like he hasn't taken his opportunity. And it's a bit sad that I feel like we might need to move on